Harvard University has rescinded its invitation to Chelsea Manning as a visiting fellow. Now, visiting fellows are individuals who visit the campus and attend several different events, sometimes on the same day, sometimes through a series of days, in order to be part of discussions relevant to their expertise. Now, the reason why they decided to rescind Chelsea Manning's invitation is because there were establishment types, particularly people like CIA Director Mike Pompeo, who took action against Harvard because of the fact that they decided to hire Chelsea Manning as a visiting fellow. Now, Mike Pompeo was supposed to appear for a speaking engagement. He canceled it. And then also Mike Morrell, who is an ex-CIA chief, just decided to resign from Harvard as a result of Chelsea Manning being invited. Now, let me give you more details. Apparently, the dean is the individual who made the decision to scrap Chelsea Manning from the events. The Harvard University Institute of Politics invitation for Chelsea Manning to serve as a visiting fellow for the 2017-2018 academic year, he says was a mistake and is being withdrawn. And again, this is the dean of the John F. Kennedy School of Government. He released this statement on Friday, today. He also continues to say, I now think that designating Chelsea Manning as a visiting fellow was a mistake for which I accept responsibility. Therefore, we are withdrawing the invitation to her to serve as a visiting fellow and the perceived honor that it implies to some people, while maintaining the invitation for her to spend a day at the Kennedy School and speak in the forum.
Wow, thank you so much. That's so generous of you. Well, you're allowed. Is she allowed to go on campus? Is she allowed to walk through Harvard Yard? Thank you so much. All right, let me go to war here. So I can't believe they did this, and maybe it's because I'm naive. But okay. At least we now know Harvard's true colors. So Harvard is a member of the establishment, I get it. So a lot of people will say, of course, Jeng, are you crazy? So they think they would rather kowtow to the CIA, they would rather do propaganda for the CIA than actually speak truth to power. So at least you know what Harvard's about now. It's a fraud, it's not a learning institution. It's an establishment institution that gives you propaganda. So now we know. Honestly, I've lost all respect for Harvard. And so you might think, oh, really, did you have any respect? No, I had tremendous respect. I went and spoke at Harvard, and I was proud that I spoke at Harvard. And I got T-shirts for my kids, and I wanted them to go to Harvard one day. I don't anymore. And so if all you're gonna teach them is to bow their head to the powerful and to kick the powerless, I want no part of that institution, and neither should you. So look, there's a lot to say about this, but I want to tell you about a petition we're doing right now, okay?
Before you do so though, I think this information is really relevant to get people fired up about the petition. Now, there are other visiting fellows that were invited to speak alongside Chelsea Manning, okay? Those people have not been disinvited, and I would argue that those people are actually much more questionable than Chelsea Manning is. Quickly, that includes Hillary Clinton campaign manager Robbie Mook.
But you know, to be fair, Robbie is like so accomplished. The way that he lost to Donald Trump, it was amazing. Boy, I'd like to learn from his dumbass. I mean, what a waste of the students' time that you're gonna bring that loser into campus to teach kids how to lose to a guy who was at 37% in the polls on election day. The guy who was the least popular person to ever run for president. Robbie Mook found a way to lose to them. Oh, no, Chelsea Manning risked everything so that Americans can know what their government's up to. But you should strip her of any privilege or honor or anything along those lines, so you can give it to Robbie Mook, who could tell people, oh, run an establishment candidate and a campaign and find a way to lose to a monster. Great work, Harvard. Okay, right, who else?
So, Did they have the captain of the Titanic also?
Former White House press secretary Sean Spicer.
Oh, great.
These are quality
honorable
people.
Honorable.
There's a lot to learn from them.
Former Donald Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski.
Okay, now Corey, he can teach the Harvard students how to assault reporters. Remember, he got partly fired. He was so incompetent, so grotesque. Donald Trump fired him, okay? and not for hey, you did like for incompetence and assault. That's what Lewandowski got fired for from the Trump campaign. Oh, but Trump has power. So as long as you have power, Harvard will bow down to you.
That's right.
Truth, learning, bravery, who cares? Who cares? But Lewandowski's, he got power with Donald Trump, and Sean Spicer briefly worked for him as a jackass who refused to answer any questions and attacked the press nonstop. That's who's gonna teach the kids at Harvard. But Chelsea Manning, who risked her life, who risked everything to let Americans know what we were actually doing, no, it's time to kick her to the curb. It's disgusting what Harvard has done.
It's disgusting what they did to Chelsea Manning, the disservice that they're doing to their students. And just to be clear, I don't believe, and I don't think anyone on this panel believes that those other visiting fellows should be disinvited, regardless of whether or not you agree or disagree with what they've done in their careers. You're supposed to have an open forum, an exchange of ideas on this college campus. And just because two people from the intelligence community, or used to be from the intelligence community, can't handle what Chelsea Manning did, they've decided to essentially scrap her fellowship. It's ridiculous. But anyway, let's now get to this.
Okay, so the petition is, I will not have any affiliation with Harvard or provide any support for it whatsoever if they do not reverse their disgraceful decision on Chelsea Manning. tytnetwork.com/Harvard. Now, this is important, guys, because I know what the skeptics will say. Oh, really? Were you guys about to do something with Harvard? Yes, I've been invited to speak at Harvard before, and if they invite me now, it's a blanket no, hell no, no interest. Okay. And if you're out there and Harvard has asked you to speak, say no. If you're applying to Harvard, don't do it. There's 1,000 great schools in this country. Go to Stanford, go to Princeton, go to Yale, but don't go to Harvard. Harvard's gonna teach you how to bow your head. Harvard's apparently gonna teach you how to suck up to the powerful. What a gross thing for kids to learn. So if you're a Harvard alumni, and we have the single most educated audience in the world, it's not an exaggeration. I have the demographics to prove it. Nearly 80% with a college education on our audience at scale. So you think there's not Harvard alumni in the audience? I get it. A lot of the alumni who are 85, who weren't smart to begin with, they got in there because their daddy got them in, are going to go, oh yes, wonderful, yes, Chelsea Manning, no good, yes, let's maintain power for the CIA and everyone else. Okay, that's fine. But Harvard also has a lot of alumni at 25 and 35 and 45. So when I say I will not support Harvard anymore, you should make sure to tell them I will not give you another dime if this is what Harvard stands for. And what I want you to do, because I will publicize it, is send them letters and CC us. Send them emails and CC us, and we'll publicize it for you. So our email is feedback@tytnetwork.com, okay? Feedback@tytnetwork.com, just CC us. And if you're a Harvard alumni, say, I'm not going to campus anymore, I'm not giving you another dollar. If you're invited to Harvard, don't go. And if they're trying to court you for early admission, go to Stanford. Any of those schools. But if they're gonna teach my kids that the best thing to do is to suck up to people like Corey Lewandowski and Mike Pompeo and to kick down people who served years in prison, who, by the way, were also, according to courts, tortured by us, Chelsea Manning was, and because she had the audacity to believe in democracy and to believe in the American people. If that's what Harvard teaches, I want no piece of that. I'm gonna throw out those Harvard shirts for my kids. We're not gonna apply. So I don't know. I don't know if they'll learn from it. And if they say, yeah, no, we're not gonna learn anything. We learned that you serve the government if you're at Harvard and you serve the powerful. Okay, great. Then don't. Then that's fine. At least we know where you stand.
So I just want to remind people of who Harvard actually gave into, who they caved in. They didn't cave into the Red Cross or Planned Parenthood or the Catholic Church. They gave into people who kill, murder, and overthrow democratically elected governments before breakfast. That's who they just caved into. They caved into people who we have a torture report about that Barack Obama sealed for 12 years. The Senate took 2 years putting together a torture report. These are the guys who ordered war crimes and then carried them out. That's who the CIA is. In fact, this all started because Mike Morrell, former ex-CIA head, he resigned over this. Do you know who Mike Morrell is? Mike Morrell, he didn't actually carry out torture. He defended torture. That's almost worse. Instead of when it came to light, trying to get rid of it, he defended it, meaning it'll happen again. He's a war crime defender. He's a war crime enabler. That's who he is. He also defended the drone bombing, which kills mostly innocent people. And so who did they bend to? They bent to murderers. They bent to the cretins of our society against who? Whistleblowers who showed the utmost courage. So you know what I would like to go and talk to on Harvard? All their literature professors who read all those books about this exact kind of thing, and they teach it to their students about how the machine crushes whistleblowers. Oh, by the way, we do that too at Harvard. That's who we are. We're empty cretins of a college university because we just bent to the most disgusting, sick, warmongering, torture carrying out people in the world. These are the people who we should be teaching our students to not be like, to not have on our campus. You want to keep somebody off your campus? How about the guy who runs a spying ring, who spies on our own citizens, who tries to deceive their own country? That's who the CIA is. That's who they're in bed with. That's who they just bowed to. Torturers and murderers.
Daniel Ellsberg was a whistleblower and is now considered an American hero. Chelsea Manning is a whistleblower, and Ellsberg didn't go to prison. Chelsea Manning went to prison for a long time. She served a huge part of her sentence, and she was willing to take all that on so we know what we did. One of the things, she released many things that let us know that the American government, including the CIA, was lying to us. They knew how many civilians they had killed, but were hiding it. But now we know that because of Chelsea Manning. One of the other things was the Apache helicopter video where we shot and murdered journalists, and then we shot and murdered first responders. The people who shot and murdered those people didn't get a single day in prison. Chelsea Manning served time for letting the American people in a democracy know what they did. So that is an American hero. And you disinvited her and said that that you didn't want to bestow an honor through a title to Chelsea Manning, and you did it because of pressure from the guys at the CIA who hid information, that same exact information from the American people that we had a right to know when we make decisions about whether we go to war or don't go to war? Okay, well, if Harvard doesn't rethink this, they have announced to the world that they are supplicants of power and sad little creatures who raise and educate kids to bow their heads.
Wow.
And serve the establishment. It is really, really disheartening. One last thing. If you have any sense at all, and you're a dean or someone in a decision-making role at one of these other universities, one of the Ivies, Duke, Stanford, or any of the other great schools, invite Chelsea Manning to be a visiting fellow. It's a layup. You know what you'll have? You'll have great respect from actual millennials who think Chelsea Manning is 1,000 times more courageous than Trump's director of the CIA. So all the Ivies out there, Princeton, Penn, et cetera, and if you're not an Ivy like Stanford or Duke, but you're a great school, what are you waiting for? Why don't you embarrass Harvard and have all the smart, courageous kids go to your school instead? If you like the Young Turks, you'll love Young Turks membership. TYTnetwork.com/join.